Welcome, smart humans, to Waves of Wisdom, summer conversations with smart minds. Because this summer, I invite you on an inspiring and transformative journey as I explore the minds and lives of extraordinary smart humans. I'm, of course, your host of the Managing the Smart Mind podcast, Elsa Kramer, also known as Coach Kramer. And throughout this scintillating summer series, we're going to be riding the waves of the inspiring lives of lots of very different people with bright brains. In each interview, I have the privilege of engaging in captivating conversations with amazing smart humans, from poets to startup founders, from artists to entrepreneurs, and from stand-up comedians to swamis. This summer, we'll be delving into the depths of their wisdom, and we're going to draw lots of inspiration from their unique perspectives, their choices, and experiences. Waves of Wisdom is not just about high IQ or being fast-brained. It's about how to harness your intelligence and your heart to make a meaningful impact. You're going to learn about strategies, tools, and shifts these smart minds have employed to navigate the complexity of being a fast-brained human on this crazy planet. We're going to explore all the ways in which you too can design a life that works with your smart mind. Whether you have a well or not so well managed smart mind, this summer series of Waves of Wisdom will help guide you on your quest for knowledge, inspiration, and personal growth. Enjoy. This is episode 85, Doing It All with Aigner. Hello, smart humans. Today, you're going to meet someone who does it all, and then some. My inspiring, smart guest on this episode, Aigner, most definitely doesn't stick to one thing. His life is a whirlwind of activities. He credits this to his upbringing in a rural area where boredom was not an option. And he has this constant need to find something to do. Well, that's definitely working. His hobbies range from flying planes, which helps him overcome his fear of heights, to playing video games and cooking with his daughter. He has founded and currently runs a multiple $1-million business, a successful software testing company, JDAQA, with over 60 employees across 3 hubs. And Jay also has his own podcast, The First Customer, where he interviews founders about their business and how they got their first customer. And guess what? He creates the most stunning astrological images. You have to check out his Instagram. So, piloting, ice hockey, astrophotography, running a multi-million-dollar business, 5 kids, and a 6th one on the way. Oh, and apparently there's a dog too. How is this even possible? Well, you're about to find out. During our deep dive into entrepreneurship and how to keep life interesting with a curious mind, we talk about things like the importance of sleep. Yes, Jay still sleeps. The importance of trusting people, following your passions, taking risks, how to build communities, and much, much, much more. Oh, and we bust some goal myths along the way. So buckle up because we go fast and there's a ton to learn here. Enjoy 90 minutes with Aigner. All right, welcome to the Managing the Smart Mind podcast, Jay. And I forgot to ask how to pronounce your last name, so
okay,
help me.
Just pretend there's no I in it, so Aigner.
Aigner, amazing. Yes. Okay, so Jay, Aigner, what is your biggest frustration, would you say?
I would say it's probably my lack of discipline. I feel like I constantly struggle to, whether it's diet or practicing certain things, meditation, which I've gotten better at. It's just, I feel very frustrated sometimes with my lack of self-accountability and lack of discipline.
But this is so interesting because we're talking to the person who has built, I don't know how many businesses, and like this incredible um, astrology photography platform, built your own telescopes, like, and you're telling me you're undisciplined.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? And I
Yeah.
have 5 kids and one on the way, so it's maybe that's part of it. Is just I feel like I live in chaos all the time.
Mm,
Um, but it's kind of a good thing for me. Like I feel like
yeah.
if I felt like I was just like this, if I had everything dialed in, then what would I be doing?
Right. You'd
I
be super
wouldn't be,
bored.
and I wouldn't be constantly trying to learn new things and trying to improve things and try to, be a better boss and a better husband and a better dad and all these different things. So, it's a good frustration. I
Mm,
constantly feel that. Some days I'll wake up. My goal every day is 5 o'clock, and some days I'll wake up at 5:20. I'll be so annoyed with myself. But it'll, I'll go downstairs. I get a better workout in. I go, I make sure that I make up for that time. And yeah, it's a driver of things. I think that feeling of not being perfect, which I know I can't be, but just trying to get as
exactly.
close as possible.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say this isn't actually a frustration at all.
Okay.
It's just you trying to be better every day.
It's your show, man. You can say whatever you call whatever you want. This is your show.
Is there another frustration or is this it?
Another frustration.
That's something that really pisses you off, to put it bluntly.
Something that really pisses me off.
Like, I'll give you
Yeah,
an
what
example to
Go
just give
ahead.
you
Yeah,
some
that'd
time
be
to think.
good.
Like,
Yes. Yes.
for me, what really pisses me off is like bureaucracy I have to deal with, like, and
Okay.
in ways
That's
that
fair.
just doesn't make sense. That just something happens in my brain and I want to go and kill someone.
I think condescension when
Interesting.
when people are condescending, um, especially to other people, I kind of learned to deal with it a little bit myself. But it's still super like I get very annoyed, very angry when look, we're all just hairless monkeys like that have
Yeah.
evolved and we're just like trying to figure this stuff out. Like why doesn't matter what you do or who you are, like the
What
fact
you're
that you would
wearing.
like what you're wearing or like what
Yeah.
job you have, like to talk down to somebody or like treat them like a lesser person is always made me very, I feel like I'm getting angry just thinking about people who have done that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think being condescending is something that frustrates me very much because I understand it because it all kind of goes back to like an insecure thing. Like people are insecure, so they try to project like this big, how cool they are and stuff. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, it just frustrates me that people haven't quite gotten past that in their life yet. But I can't control what other people do. So
Yeah. Fair enough. And also, I think with condescension, the part that I hate is like what people assume, right? It's just so stupid.
yes,
Yeah.
there's idiots. How are they?
Yeah.
Look at us being condescending.
I know.
That's a
So
great,
fun.
great thing to do. It's so fun.
Listen, next card. And this is, I can't believe I'm even asking you this because I mean, the amount of things you do is kind of mind boggling to me, even if you oversleep like 20 minutes. Um, how in the world do you do all the things you do? And then on this card, it's like boredom. How do you keep yourself from getting bored?
Throw that card away. Throw
Right?
that. There's no.
Do you ever get bored for a second?
I mean, I think everybody gets bored, even sitting at the airport or at the dentist's office or something, some place that I'm confined where I can't just get up and go find something to do. But um, I think I grew up in Virginia, which is a very rural, or some of it's very rural.
Mm.
And I didn't have the option of being bored. I didn't have the, if I was bored, my mom would say, I'll find something for you to do. And it was normally
Ah,
chores or whatever. And I was lucky to grow up kind of in the middle of nowhere and I would just wander out into the woods or wander off on my like little dirt bike or go do something and just, would always find something to do. And I think that carried over. I don't know. I don't really know what true boredom feels like. And it's probably not a fair question for me because like I said, I have a bunch of kids. So like
yeah,
it's impossible. Like and I it is easy to take that for granted sometimes. The fact that I have such a big network that I've created myself around me, but um yeah, I couldn't be bored if I tried. Maybe if I went on
right.
vacation and I was just like sitting on the beach and like I just sat there for too long, I'd be bored. But um yeah, just learning new things.
You're
Always
constantly learning new things, right?
always
Like
trying to. I
all
mean,
the
I'm
time.
trying to, and it doesn't matter if it's business or hobby stuff. I'm a huge hobby guy. I mean, look at you got a giant Lego thing behind you. I mean, we all Like I think people who don't have hobbies, going back to frustrations, I think that also frustrates me because it's like a
Ah,
weird thing to me. I don't understand how you don't have hobbies. Like, how do you not have a million things that you could be doing at
yeah,
any given time?
yeah.
So yeah, I would say just constantly trying to learn new things and just being excited about stuff. Otherwise, like, what are we doing? You know?
So tell me about some of your hobbies.
Well, you mentioned a couple of them. Um, Astrophotography. Actually, my telescope is in my office right now because we just
Oh,
moved back home after being we moved out for 6 months, moved my family out to renovate our house fully. So we just got back and then
wow.
so I have a giant 115 millimeter telescope in my office right now, fully computerized. And like you said, the I'm a community builder kind of guy. Like I really enjoy, which is weird because I feel like I'm an introvert, but I think it's, growing up on the internet gave me an ability to kind of be part of groups and networks and stuff that you didn't have to. And like I said, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. So like my
Yeah,
closest neighbor was like a mile away. So, um, being able to create online groups was something I kind of figured out early on. And it started with like video game leagues, like where we just play. And I mean, I'm still in the same league now. We've had the same guys for over 10 years. We play the same, every year a new the game comes out. We download it, we all play together.
amazing.
And I did the same thing with astrophotography. I do ice hockey. I didn't play in the last season, but I did learn to play
I'm
because all
guessing
my
you're
kids.
no longer in Virginia if you're
No,
playing
I'm
it.
not. I'm not. So we didn't. So my all my kids play ice hockey, and my wife and my oldest son or my middle son, who's 10, conned me into doing learn to play adult hockey because I didn't know how to skate, I didn't know how to play hockey, I didn't know whatever. So a bunch of dads from my son's hockey team went and did this together, and my brother-in-law does it now. So we all kind of go out and just play in this like very casual men's league in the evenings on Wednesdays. Um, always been a big uh tinker with Arduino stuff, like
Yep,
the home automation stuff. I've always found a lot of, and I swear I invented the Bluetooth speaker football before it became popular. I had a working prototype and
I believe
everything. It
you.
was a Nerf ball, and I had two holes connected with speakers and a Bluetooth Arduino in there, and like they took it out and the kids loved it, and I didn't know what to do with it. And then like a year later, Rob Gronkowski, like a really famous NFL player, came out with a branded version of a Bluetooth speaker football, and it took off and became this big thing. I'm like,
Amazing.
so I have a bone to pick with Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah.
Um, but that and just constantly like doing programming stuff. Like I love to do little projects and bots and stuff. ChatGPT obviously makes that a little bit easier now because I
Mm.
went to school to make video games, and I don't get to do that for my job. But I do, I like to make little Python bots and do stuff just programmatically. The business I consider a hobby. Podcasting I consider a hobby. I wouldn't say business a hobby. Like there's things to the business like sales and marketing, like methods and like learning different things about how to sell stuff, how to
Yeah.
create content in a way that your target customer can digest. I find is interesting. The podcast. Um, Yeah, a lot of stuff. Just a lot of
Yeah.
different. I'm working on my pilot's license. Like I literally think I was so close. I was right to the end of getting it, and then my daughter was born. My youngest daughter, who's a year now. So I put that on hold. But I think
Mm.
every day, maybe 5 times, I think about having to get back and just finish my written test, finish my check ride, and getting my pilot's license because that's one of my most favorite things in the world.
Being up there. Yeah.
You feel like a Wright brother. It's insane. Like I've done my long cross country. It's called a long cross country, which is really just like I think it's 50 nautical miles between airports, but flying by yourself like over flocks of birds and stuff is
Yeah.
like the wildest. Like it's just a very small percentage of humans have actually got to like do that, and I feel very fortunate when I'm up there. So we'll
The
be
the
wrapping up
closest
soon.
I've got is like being in a Cessna, which I mean
Yeah.
took some adjustment. I was like, wow, this is like a cookie tin. Now
Yes.
we're gonna step
I'm
into
not
it.
a heights guy though. I hate heights and I'm terrified. I don't ride roller coasters. That thing behind you is giving me
Yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah.
I don't I don't do roller coasters. I don't do, any of that stuff. But when I'm flying that plane, it all goes away. And
Mm, interesting.
maybe it's a control thing. I don't know, but like I can look down, 5,000 feet and I'm like, I'm
You're totally
fine.
cool.
I'm in control. Doing stall practice, which is pretty wild, where you
Mm-hmm.
like literally,
Sounds
you're going
fun.
65, drop it down to 65 knots. There's two different types, but the one that's really fun is to jam the throttle all the way in and pull up. and you go straight up until you hear the stall horn and it drops because it stalls. You have to recover. Just practice for if you're, in certain situations where you have to recover from that. So, yeah, not bored very often. I play video games too. I get video game time in every now and again. I got some in last night. My daughter came in. She's like, you never play this anymore. She's like, what is? She's like, this is great. So I was playing a little Xbox last night as well. So, um, yeah, and then cooking. I think my daughter loves to cook. My 7-year-old daughter, so we cook. So,
Okay, so I think some
yes,
listeners may be thinking, does this guy sleep?
I sleep a lot. I love to sleep.
So how do you do it? How do you do all these things?
I mean, I don't do them all in the same day, but
Good to know.
I mean, that would be a wild day. That'd be a fun day.
Yes.
That was like when I shot. I did a solar shoot, a lunar shoot, and a deep sky shoot all in the same day, which is like pretty. It's all separate configurations of my telescope, and it was like a cool thing I just had thought of one day. I was like, I'll just get a picture of each one of these things, kind of like, and represent them all together. Um, yeah, I sleep. I go to bed. Well, depend. Now that I started getting up early, I mean, this was a couple of years ago. I started getting up early, but I'll if I can be in bed by 9:30,
Oh, so you
sleep
do get some sleep.
sleep by ten
Nice.
o'clock.
Yeah.
You steal it back in the morning.
Yeah.
There's nobody around.
Yeah.
Everybody's
It-
sleeping. I say before, let's say, but before my gremlins wake up, before my gremlins come downstairs, I can get my workout in. I can get a little work done. Um, but yeah, I get plenty of sleep, and if I don't, I'm
I love it.
miserable. Gotta
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotta sleep.
And I love that time in the morning when there's nobody else up.
Oh,
And it's
it's the
just, isn't it
nicest.
the best?
It feels like it's so nice. It's
Yeah.
so nice. Taking the dog for a walk when it's like 6 in the morning and there's nobody. It's not hot yet in the summertime. It's beautiful.
But walk me back just a little bit. Like, how did this all start? Like, what was your first business like?
I mean, my first real business, oh, I don't say real business. My first business was my mom did an advertising agency. She's
Mm.
always kind of been an entrepreneur. And when back when the World Wide Web first came around, people wanted websites and she was doing
Yeah.
advertising and she didn't know how to do websites. So I was kind of just figuring out how to do websites and I started doing them for her customers and, making $1,200 for a website when you're like 13, 12, 13 was like
That's
a
pretty neat.
huge deal for me.
Yeah.
Especially back in like the 90s, which, whatever that would be today. But yeah, that was probably my first one. And then I kind of took, I'm not gonna say a hiatus, but like, life happened. I turned to a teenager and started chasing other things than money. And
Mhm.
then went to college, did the job thing, the regular job thing. Oh, I did, and I did speaking of community, I was a huge fan of these text-based role-playing games
Ah,
online.
yeah.
Talk about being a nerd.
Yeah.
In my basement, I literally hosted there's a Linux server in my basement that people could log into, and it was a full text-based MMO, right? So people would
Oh,
get on, they could log in and interact with each other, they could steal stuff, they could build these characters up, they could do all these things. I did that for years. Um, and I did that kind of during my regular career. And then I think we had like maybe our second kid was on the way.
hang
And
on. What was your regular career?
my regular career was a game tester. So
Mm.
I went to school to be a game. I want to be a game designer. So I went down to Florida. I went to Full Sail. Great school. It's mainly more programming. They teach you how to be a programmer, which was cool, and I love that. And then, but I realized I wasn't like a great programmer. Like I realized I was good, but not like I realized I'd probably like not love being one for my job. And I got bailed out. I was down there, and it happened that a company in Pennsylvania was hiring for game testers from
Mm.
that school, and I was like, wow, this is kind of a cool thing. And I don't know if you guys have them over there, but they have these touchscreen bar games, like on the countertops of the bars. They have these things called Mega Touch machines. They like Photo Hunt and all these different like games that you'd have on it. And that's the company I work for. And I got to do game design for them eventually. And I mean, I worked there for 6 or 7 years doing just quality assurance, testing stuff, like testing the
Hmm.
hardware, testing the software. Um, and then I got an offer to go to a big medical software company and I didn't want to do it at all. But I was making like 50 grand a year. My wife's like, "Got another kid on the way. You should probably check it out." And I left. I was there for about a year, and it was the worst. It was
Mm.
the worst. It was. soul crushing. Like people would walk into that place and walk out like zombies. It was just like a big cube farm, and it was a great experience for me because I was like, I never want to do this again in my entire life.
Exactly. Right now, you know what you
I,
really, really,
I was
really
like, I
do not
can't.
want.
Oh yes, my God. And
Yeah.
I got bailed out. I was sitting at my desk and I had a desk phone that I didn't even know it worked. I didn't even know it was a real. I didn't even know it was a real phone. It rang one day, and this guy was like, "Hey, I'm a headhunter. Would you like to come interview at a startup company that does Internet of Things, like automation stuff?" I'm like, "Hell yeah! Like,
Are
I'll
you
try it."
kidding me?
I was like, "Sounds great." And I remember
Get me out of
taking
here.
get me out of this place, and so then I bounced around a bunch of different startup kind of companies doing testing. And while I was doing that, my wife was a nurse overnight, and I was like, that's it was just terrible. Long-term care, just like an awful job. And I was like, I want to get her out of there. And
Mm.
I started to figure out like I applied for Uber. They actually turned me down because my license was still from Virginia. So they turned me down for Uber. So I couldn't drive. I couldn't even be an Uber driver.
Oh my God.
Um
That is a
I,
great sort of thing to put in your CV, right? Like,
it
got
is.
turned
It's
down by,
perfect, right? Yeah. Got turned down by Uber and then went and started a, multi-million dollar company. Like, screw
yeah.
you, Uber. Um, But then I was like, I was looking for anything. And then I just happened to stumble upon elance.com, which was a consulting website back in the day that got bought, merged with Upwork eventually and became the behemoth that Upwork is today.
Mm.
And I started picking up side contracts. And I was doing side contracts for QA, so software testing stuff for apps and for websites while I was doing my 9 to 5 job, testing at a bunch of different places. And, eventually just kind of realized I have too much work to do in a day. I asked one of my friends who used to work with me at Megatouch if he wanted to come work with me. And, hey man, do you want to do 20 hours a week? Pick that up. And it's like, yeah, sure. He still works for me today. And
Amazing.
my old boss, I actually hired my old boss to come work for me at Megatouch, which was fantastic. Tim Swisher was an awesome guy. Still talk to him all the time. So yeah, and then I just kind of built the business from there, which was I did it the easy way in the sense that like I didn't just like jump out, like leave my 9 to 5 and, go
I love this. And I just
do
want
the
to
thing.
press pause on this
Yes,
because I think so many people think, oh, I need to like burn all the bridges and cut all the cords and go. If I don't, it means I'm not all in. And I think that is so ridiculous. I mean, for some people, it works and it can work really well. But for most people, it just freaks them out completely, paralyzes them. And then everything crashes and burns instead of just, gradually transitioning, which
hundred
is
percent,
so
hundred
much
percent.
smarter sometimes. Yeah.
Well, it's just a de-risked type of approach,
Okay, so this is funny because like my next card is Risk.
Oh, Risk! Look at that. I love that game, by the way. One of my favorite board
Same.
games.
Okay, when you're in Holland, we'll have to play.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have this big game table, which is basically just like a glorified like tablet in our house. That's like a four-person like video game table, and it has Risk on it. And it's like, oh, it's so fun.
Mm,
It's fun to not have to set everything up. I'll say that. But I do miss the physical pieces sometimes.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So, Risk. I don't
Yeah.
like
So
it.
you're saying I avoided like taking a massive risk. Still, like it is
I
risky.
don't think I still do, but I definitely did. I think I've become less scared of risk as I've gotten older. Like
How?
this I mean, this whole this whole project I just did with my house was like super risky. It was
I
a
know it sounds
major
like a nightmare.
undertaking, and like I had to go rent somewhere else, and like there's risk everywhere.
Yeah.
I think it's just the biggest thing. You realize it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like, and if you even pause to think about it, sometimes it'll be too late.
Yeah. You can't even
Whatever the
get out of
thing,
the door. It's way too risky when you start thinking about it. Right?
yeah, like it's the plane could fall on your head. It's like what are you gonna do? I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm not just like I don't do caution to the wind, as they say, but um, I definitely don't live my life kind of afraid of the things that could happen. I try to just think about the things that could happen and be
Right. The
excited about it.
upside.
Yeah,
So
so
do you think that is what shifted for you? That sort of focusing on, okay, but what if it does work?
yeah, and I don't know when. Maybe I just always was kind of like that. But I think just I think once you get confidence that like, and I think that all this stuff takes a little bit of time, and it's easier when you're like later in your 30s when you're like, hey, like some of the stuff has worked out that I tried. Like it's
Yeah.
way easier to just be like, oh yeah, of course, it's like just no risk, just go try it. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's certain times where there's like a lump in your throat, and like, is this gonna work? Like I don't know, and you give it a shot. But I think risk is if you don't have, if you're too comfortable,
Mm,
you're probably not in the right place anymore. You know,
I love this. Okay, say it louder for people in the back.
if
Seriously,
you're too comfortable, you're probably not in the right place anymore. Um,
100%. Because you stop growing.
you should be like, nerves are good,
Yeah,
you
a
know,
little bit, right? Not like so much that you're making cortisol
not
all the time
paralyzed.
and you
Yeah,
get
yeah,
sick. Yeah,
not paralyzed and like terrified, but
but
I mean,
excited.
yeah, you
Yeah.
should be on. I mean, otherwise, again, what are we doing? You know, if we're not excited, if we're not like, just like a number of days you have around here, like, what are you doing? Like, you're just going to work and punching in and punching out. Like, what kind of
What's the point?
boring existence? And then you look back, and the things I keep, I try to meditate and listen to a lot of like contemplative stuff, and they like, the biggest thing is like, you have a finite number of days with people in your life, and
Yeah.
like, if what are you going to do, like, what is their impression of you going to be, and what if this next interaction was your last? Like you would want that to be special and important, and I try to live that. And I think that takes some of the, the fear of risk away. It's like, just do it, just hang out, just go, have a good time, and try new things.
Love it. Do you have any systems and structures that you sort of that help you get through all the things?
Systems and structures, I think, I think about this a lot. I don't know that I do.
Mm. So no notion obsidian, like all the things, no second brain.
I mean, I've tried the second brain thing and all
Yeah,
that stuff. It's a lot of work,
I
man.
know. I've tried it
It's
too. It's
it's
not
like
working for me either.
exhausting. It's like you gotta index your life into like a notes app. Like, again, I mean, look, it probably works for, it's probably why some people are bajillionaires and
Yeah,
whatever. Um, no, I really don't know. I have implemented systems in my life, but I don't live by a system, right? Like, for my business, we have systems. But yeah, I mean, I try to have a routine.
mm.
I don't know if you'd call that a system or not, but I mean, I
I'd call that
try
a
to have,
structure, right? A way of structuring your day to day, which can be insanely helpful.
that is very helpful for me.
Yeah,
Structuring a routine, and it was probably the biggest shift professionally and just personally for me, was shifting to the 5 a.m. wake up, which is like cliche at this point. It's like, oh, if you wake up at 5, like, you'll be the greatest. It's like, that's not
yeah,
what I'm saying. I'm just
no,
like, it has worked for me. But the 5 a.m. workout, or 5 a.m. wake up workout, because I do believe very heavily that physical movement and mental health are like very tightly tied together.
100%.
Um, Mobility, I also believe, is really big, which I didn't even really understand what that word meant in my younger life. But a lot, I do a full body stretch like every day. So it's wake up, workout, stretch, meditate, which I also think is very important. Again, very cliche, very like, oddly enough, still like kind of hipstery, kind of, or like hippie kind of.
I was gonna say, you don't need to apologize, right? Like, listen,
I,
meditation is fucking
I'm
awesome.
not. I'm not. I'm just saying in general. Like, you hear that, it's like become. It's like come back around as being cool again. Like, it
I
went away for a while, and like, but I love it. It's very. It's
It
I've done it for a
works. Like,
while.
I get all my clients, I say, if you haven't got it already, here's like 30 days of the Headspace app. Just go try it because it
Yeah.
is a life changer.
Yeah.
Seriously.
It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Well, it's just weird because it's like, it's the space between.
Yeah.
It's like really like the. It's not like, it's not gonna solve things. It's just like the noise. Like, it's in between the noise. Like, you find those moments where you're like, oh, like, I'm being mindful. This is great. And then journaling is my last one. So I
Ah,
kind of like a 5 for 5 thing. I try to do that every day. And then journaling is huge for me. Um, I don't see a therapist, but I have been to a therapist. So
mm,
I've, been to therapy sessions, and that feeling of relief that you get, there is a light version of that, I believe, when you journal.
yeah.
Um, just because if all the things are just literally like the old Windows screensaver, like bouncing around in your head, just like hitting the different corners all day, and like you can't, and you can't tell everybody everything, because you
No.
probably sound like a lunatic if you tell
Also, they
everybody.
don't want to hear it.
Nobody gives a shit, it's like, and
Ah,
it's fine. Like, this piece
yeah.
of paper or my app or whatever that I'm using, and I try to find consistency in like which medium I'm going to use, because if there's too much resistance, like my notebook, like I try to use my notebook. I try to
Mm,
use like the guided journaling thing. It's like, a lot of times it's easier to like open up the app, open up an
mm,
app, I think it's called diarium or something. It's just a diary app. You just open
Yeah.
up. So yeah, I was gonna say diary journaling is big for me. Mainly just because um get some of those thoughts out that are just trapped up there all the time. And if I do all those things, and that's why I get annoyed with the wake up, because I feel like I only have a certain amount of time before my kids get up and before the day starts.
Mm,
And if I can do all those things between 5 and 6 a.m., then the rest of my day is like everybody says it's
right. It's
done.
solid. Yeah.
It's done. Like everything's
Yeah.
done. Like all the hard stuff's out of the way. So that's kind of my main routine. And then my wife and
Is there
I
an
try. Go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead.
I was gonna say my wife and I try to live by the calendar as much as possible. And as you can imagine, with a bunch of kids, that's tough. But we do
Yeah.
try Sunday evenings at like a specific time to sit down, go through the calendar for the week. So there's not like oh, I thought you were going to be doing this, or I'm like,
Mm.
oh yeah, I've got this thing to do. And it's like, so we're not perfect at it, but that's something we're trying to do.
I was going to ask, is there anything in your physical space also that you have that helps you do the things you do or eliminates distractions or actually just inspires you?
Anything in my physical space?
Yeah.
Like right now, like in my office or just in general?
Well, let's start with your office, right? When you look around, what do you notice?
That's a great question. Too much clutter drives me crazy, I think, and it's
Uh-huh.
distracting. But it's almost impossible to keep it perfectly clean. So like there's a balance between just like moderate clutter and just like perfectly, because
Empty desk.
then you're just sitting there like rubbing little stains off your desk all day, which is not good either. Um
This is
yeah, I
why
mean
I have 6 desks, by the way, but that's a different
six
story.
desks.
I have
Like
different
in
desks for different tasks.
really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I like that. That seems like a
Obscene
lot of
almost, right?
I
I
mean,
have a massive
it's
space.
slightly obscene, but
Yeah.
it's
But it
brilliant.
works for me.
I think my physical space. I will. Again with the workout theme, I think a good yoga mat,
Mm.
my Peloton bike, my weights, my obscenely large shower. That was the only thing that I cared about during this house rebuild. Um,
By the way, I think shower, like I call my shower or like having a shower is going into my idea lab, right?
oh
That is
yeah,
when I mean, it is massively important to have a good shower.
it's it's what I've always thought I needed. I'm in there. I'm like, I got the big rain head. I have the things coming out of the wall. I have like it is a
You're living the dream.
well, it's just like it's something I feel like, sometimes you don't feel like you've earned the things that you have. You know what I mean? You feel like,
Hmm.
oh, I probably don't deserve this, but like that's one thing I'm like, you know what? This is good. I earned this and this is good. Like I need this recharge. I need this reset
Yeah.
after, to start the day, to end the day, whatever it is. Um, I'm gonna say a stupid answer, but good cookware. I
Yeah. Oh
believe
my
having
God.
good
Yeah.
cookware is very important. Um,
100%. Oh my God.
I think it's very important.
Tools. Basically, this is about tools, right? You need
Tools.
proper tools.
I'm a tools fanatic,
Yeah.
and not going into the software space, but like I'm a tools nerd when it comes to uh, and I'm in a good space because in software testing there's a million tools, and I get to be a tools expert, and I get to sell that expertise. So it's like a big, kind of comes back around. So I would say those are probably and my telescope. My
Yeah.
telescope is another one and it's been so damn cloudy and the all the smoke from the wildfires in
Oh,
Canada comes
yeah.
right down to us and it just like
That sucks.
completely cuts it out. So uh yeah, I'd say that's pretty much it.
Okay. Just focusing on the telescope. How did that start? I mean, how did you end up? And I have to tell people, listen, you have to check out his Instagram. It's insane.
Oh,
It's
thank you.
so, no, but it's seriously, as a professional photographer or ex-professional photographer, but you can never really stop, can you?
Yeah, I was gonna say you're not an ex.
No,
You're not.
but it's so amazingly beautiful.
Oh, thank
I was scrolling. I was just like, What? How? Like it I always get this like this beautiful sense of awe, and I'm like, oh my God, right? How
Wow.
is the universe so beautiful? So how did that start?
I don't know if you can see it, but there's a drone right there.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of started it. It was a few years ago. I think it was Father's Day a few years ago. Remember Neowise, the comet, the one that came? You could like see. There was like a comet that everybody could see, and it was like a big deal. And it was all you could like see with your naked eye.
Oh,
But
really? Okay.
yeah, it was like a pretty. It was, I guess, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not sure, but yeah, I that was happening, and I was like into that new drone I got back there, like, and it's a Mavic Air 2 drone. It's like a nice drone. I like was like doing a bunch of like video stuff and like just like cool stuff. It was like I think it's got like 8K camera. It's a nice camera.
Hmm.
Um,
That's pretty
yeah,
neat.
yeah, it's pretty nice. It's a nice drone, and they're like pretty affordable. Um, but I was trying long exposures because you can has a a gimbal or whatever
Hmm.
gyroscope on it, so like it just doesn't you can take long exposures. And I took one of the comet, and I was like, that's pretty damn cool. And it was just like a little
Wow.
dot off in the horizon. I was like, that's cool. And it was kind of the backdrop of the rest of the sky. And so I was like, you know what, this is pretty neat. Let me see if I can take some night shots. And actually, the camera that I'm using now, which is my new video camera that I pulled out of a drawer about 2 weeks ago, uh, I started doing long exposures at night. And like they were like these old, just like smudgy looking because I didn't understand how the rotation of the earth worked
Right, right,
back
right.
then. And there was like a little smudge, like tiny, tiny smudge in the corner, and it was Andromeda.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so like I Googled like, then you go down the Google rabbit hole and this guy, Nico Carver, who was like the uh Harvard astro he was a librarian at the astronomy library in Harvard or something. He made all these really cool videos. And he's part of my group now, my astrophotography group. Um and he has all these cool videos of like how do you take long exposures of Andromeda, and like you can get some really impressive results for like a little, mirrorless Canon camera. And so that's how it started. And then I went online, and people are kind of assholes about the hobby, quite frankly. Just like a bunch
How
of
so?
just like a bunch of old rich white dudes with lots of money and nice telescopes, and they're just like, "Rah, rah, rah." They just don't.
Oh,
Nobody wants to
it's
help you. They're just
the
very,
same with photography, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's 100% the same way. It's
God.
like very very gatekeeping, like
Yes.
annoying. Like they think they're cool. And it's like I didn't like that, and so I was on Reddit, and I'd met this guy, and we started. He was like, "Oh, he's like, I saw the picture of Andromeda. He's like, this is I have the same exact gear. That's crazy." And so anyway, I started a Slack group, and I started inviting people, and we had probably 5 or 6 people, and that grew to like 20 or 30, and then we switched over to Discord, which is a little like easier in this modern day and age to
Yeah.
invite and add people to or whatever. And I just started messaging people, and I would find and it's very easy on social media to kind of go down the an Instagram rabbit hole of all the different astrophotographers. I'd message a bunch of them. They'd be like, "Oh, that's great. I'd love to join your group." Same thing with Reddit. I would do that, and then I had around 400 or 500 people in the group, and then Chat GPT came out, and I was like, "Let me see if I can automate some of my processes here." And we're at we had about 1,000 people in the last few months, up to around four. I think we have 12 or 1,300 now. Um, by using the bot that I built with ChatGPT, going through my normal channels that I normally go through, Instagram, Reddit, whatever, reaching out to them, sending the same messages I would send. I already have an established profile on those things. So people click
Right.
on it to see that
You
it's
have the
me.
credibility.
And they're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, like hell yeah, I love it. So that, I mean, we just like skyrocketed. And so we have some just like really cool things. Like I have a lot of
Okay,
really cool.
hang on,
Yeah,
because I have
sorry.
to press pause on
Yes.
this as well, because I think this is
Yes.
like crazy useful advice for people who want to build communities. And I know there's lots of smart people out there who are like, I want to play with other people. Where are they? Who have my
Yes.
type of brain or are interested in the same thing and sitting at home being lonely. Hello. Right. Did you just hear this?
Yeah. Go make yourself a bot. Make some friends.
Yeah, 100%. And it's yes, they count as friends, in case you're wondering.
Why wouldn't they? I've met a lot
Yeah.
of these people. Not a lot of
Yeah.
them. I met quite a few
Yep.
of them in real life. So,
Yeah. Totally.
um,
So
and
now
we,
you have like this massive community of people who take amazing pictures.
yes, and we all
That's
help each
really useful.
other, and we all there's like some very simple rules, or just like basically like don't be a dick. Like that's kind
Yeah.
of like the main rule. Um, we haven't had really any problems. Like everybody like likes each other. It's a very fun hobby. Like there's levels of it, where like people are kind of happy where they're at and they move up to the next level and they like me, like
Yeah,
just start
because
doing a bunch of
let's
shit. It's
be frank
crazy.
here. It can also be quite an expensive
It
hobby.
is a
Like,
very expensive hobby. It is. It
yeah,
is. And I went, you know, as you could probably guess, I don't typically like just dip my toe in. I'm like, let's
yeah, you
go.
go all
So
in.
yeah, so yeah, I mean, and I'm still adding stuff and changing stuff and you know, adding a rotator so like I don't have to go out and do anything. Like
Yeah,
it'll manually rotate to the right orientation because I'm running that inside in a program. But um yeah, I'm super proud of the group. Like we've got some really, really cool people. And like that's I think the biggest thing that if anybody's trying to build a community is like you will find other cool people that also
mm,
have like a
yeah,
passion for being in a cool people group. Like
yeah,
it's just like human nature. Like we've got some guys that are like just unreal, like legendary astrophotographers. We got guys that are like in college, like this one kid that Will that is like kind of like one of our like early stage guys who's worked with us forever. He he does stuff that like people have been doing the hobby for like 30 or 40 years, like, oh my God, this is incredible. This is amazing. And we started put together these collaborations.
mm,
So people all over the world, if you're in the right hemisphere, you can't shoot stuff in the southern
yeah.
hemisphere. But
Fair.
which I didn't really understand until I started doing astrophotography. I'm like, wait, what does that make sense?
Yeah, no, you have a
Um,
different perspective.
and you have different things you can shoot. There's different
Yeah,
targets.
yeah,
Um, we would combine our data, and as long as you have similar enough scopes, you can combine your data. And we've like won like awards. Like our stuff is in magazines now. Like our collaborations where we have like hundreds of hours of data that we've put together. Because as you stack the more basically the more data you have, the clearer the images become because you're reducing the noise,
yeah.
right? So you're just stacking images. So if you have hundreds
Noise,
of
and
hours of
just for
data,
people
it's
who have no
crazy.
idea, like what noise is, like in photography, noise is where you get like all the speckles in your image. And if you do like low light photography, noise is always going to be a problem.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. And there's different types of noise.
yeah,
There's heat noise. Uh so depending on like you have to calibrate all of the frames that you take in astrophotography because the heat of your camera and the optics in any specks or anything or dust in your optics, you have to filter
yep,
those out with calibration frames, as I'm sure you know. Um, and then like I said, the masterpiece is stacking it all together, and then there's all these tools that we use to process them because spoiler alert to anybody, you can't really see any of this stuff if you were to fly out in space. It's all
yeah,
basically invisible light spectrum kind of stuff. But uh, Hubble took the artistic liberty many years ago to start colorizing that stuff, and we kind of used their palette and assign the different gases, different colors, and that's why you get all the crazy kind of cool
yeah.
pictures. But there are things that you shoot in LRGB. There are things like the Orion Nebula, for example. The Andromeda that's back there that you can't really see. Can you actually see that? There it is.
Ah, yes,
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
stunning.
So that you could actually see that if you were in space, but a lot of the stuff you can't see. So anyway, long tangent, but yes, community building has been a big thing for me.
And as we were talking about, like the telescopes being a wee bit expensive, like the next card is money. How do you manage like all the things money wise, and how do you even think about money? I'd love to hear.
I don't.
Hmm.
That's what I
So maybe
do. I
that's your
don't.
secret.
The secret is I don't. No, I mean, look, there's some point I stopped living paycheck to paycheck,
Yeah,
which was, I think for everybody it doesn't feel like that long ago, even if it was a while ago. Um, yeah, I mean, doing consulting work and building a business eliminates a lot of the money problems.
hmm.
Now I'm always the Grinch of the house when it comes to money, right? I mean, I can't even if I'm off spending a bunch of money, my wife, I have to give her grief sometimes for going on Amazon too much or whatever. But like in reality, like I spent, I'm just as whatever. Um, but it's such a weird thing. Money's such a weird thing because
Yeah.
you want it, you want it, you want it, and then you kind of get to a point where it doesn't matter as much. But I have like these goals, these monetary goals, whatever they. I guess they're arbitrary at this point. But um, yeah, we just spent a very considerable amount to get our house done.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, it was like we're gonna live here forever, so we're gonna make this our forever house. And I think a lot of people would have had multiple heart attacks dealing with the amount of stuff and renting another place and
Yeah.
like setting up utilities and doing stuff in another place and then like still having 5 kids and then like another one on the way and medical bills and like oh it's just like I don't know. I just I don't really it's I mean it's a good thing and a bad thing, right? I think about it but I don't think about it and I probably should think about it more than I do. I should probably plan more than I do. I just know when I'm comfortable, like with
Hmm.
money, like I don't have to worry. And if I don't have to worry, like my buddy runs a great business, but he um has like a spreadsheet with like
Hmm.
every and everything is it's like all planned out and like he knows exactly every dollar and everything it's gonna make and how much he's spending on stuff. And I'm like, that sounds awful. Like it sounds terrible. So I would say that I don't, you know, I got to some point where we made $1 million in the business for 1 year, and I was like, that is huge milestone. But I don't
Yeah.
know. As with any milestone, it's like there's such weird things in life because like they're just like a pinprick in like the continuum. Like they're not like this big like no balloons come out of the sky.
Yeah.
There's no like there's nothing that happens. You're
No
just like
epiphany. Right?
nothing. You're like,
Yeah.
cool, like great. Now let's do two. Like now let's do
Next.
five. Now let's
Yeah.
do 10. It's like there's no major thing that happens, and they're all just arbitrary numbers. Like $1 million is no different
Exactly.
than 900,000 or 1.5. I mean, they're all just arbitrary numbers. Um, so I don't know. I think it's easy to obsess about it when you don't have it, and I think it's easy to be like you see like professional athletes who blow everything and go broke. I can see why. Like
Yeah.
if you go from chasing this thing forever, now you have it, you just don't worry about it anymore. So there's definitely a balance of like, you know, being financially sound. Um, I also think money's like I had lunch with a guy who has a team in the Philippines years ago, and he thought I was crazy for how much I pay my people. And I don't. I mean, there's obviously a difference in cost of living
Yeah.
and price. I mean, that's why we do offshore work. That's why iPhones are made in China. There's a reason why these
Yeah.
things are the way they are. But I always try to overpay and compensate people because I feel like it all comes back anyway.
I
Like
love that.
if you're giving your people bonuses and like you're rewarding them for like being passionate about you and your company and doing good things for you, um, it all comes back. Like I mean, I spend so much money on bonuses a year, it's crazy, and I pay my guys pretty well considering the average and the other kind of people that get paid over there. So um, it's I just say all that because it's like it's also a token of appreciation. It's like it's a way to show people. It's like you get taught in American life, like you can't buy happiness and you can't buy these things, and that's fine. But like at the same time, if somebody works for you, it is a very clear like picture of how you feel about somebody. If they're
Yeah.
busting their ass over the weekend to do something, like if there's just a part of another big company, they're not going to get like a man, they're going to get great job, whatever. But if
Yeah.
I go to them and be
Pat
like,
on the back.
I'm
Yeah.
like, here's like 250 to here's $500 for like coming in and just being like a team player. Like that person's going to work harder for me. They're going to appreciate the fact that I appreciate them.
Yes.
That money will come back in the form of like, another client that's like happy down the line because that person worked hard. Like it's all just like, I don't know. It's you get to a point where you feel like you can use your money to be a little smarter and a
Yes.
little make it work for you a little more, not just in the traditional way of just like sticking it in an investment account, but like you know taking
I
care of the
think,
people who take care of you.
yeah. And I think sort of the joy of being generous is so underrated. It's actually super fun to be generous,
Yeah,
right? We could have a whole discussion like, is it even altruistic if you get something out of it? I don't care. Like, I just love giving because I just get to feel amazing, right?
yeah, No,
Yeah.
that's a fair point. But
Yeah.
I think it's a really good point though. Like there is no altruism if you think of it that way,
Yeah.
right? Like there's no like you're always getting something out of it. Like you're
Exactly.
always getting happiness of somebody else being happy.
Yeah.
It's
But
like
whenever
giving somebody.
people say like you're leaving money on the table, that kind of thing, right? I've had that a lot as well. And I'm like, but you don't get it. Like it is fun for me to do it this way. So money is just one sort of variable and one aspect of the business, but there's so many other things. And giving more money or making less money and then getting something else just gives me so much joy. Why would I, want to trade that for more euros in my case?
Yeah,
Does
I
that make
mean, look,
sense?
my and being able to gift things is like it's definitely a thing that is underappreciated. Like you said,
Yeah.
it's never it doesn't like you said it doesn't matter if I enjoy it or I think that's the whole point is like everybody is in it for something,
Yeah.
right? And like I'm in it for feeling good for giving money, then like that's fine. And if
Yeah.
you're in it
It's
because
not a
you're
problem.
it's not a at the end of the day, everybody's happier. It's like who the hell cares?
Exactly. Exactly. I love that. And actually the I think we could give way more and sort of own up to enjoying it, right? Like being Santa or whatever. It is a great feeling.
It's like
Without,
yeah,
I
it
think,
makes you yeah.
having to put on the holier than thou sort of cap, that is a problem. But if you
Yeah.
just enjoy giving,
Well, there's
just
condescension again, right? It's like
exactly
so
the power dynamic, right? Yeah.
it's weird that there's any sort of negative connotation around giving,
Yeah.
except for when people like said when it's like holier than thou is a good way to put it.
Yeah. Or basically bribing people. But that's a whole different
Bribing people is
dynamic.
a different
Yes.
story. But and I think some people would associate like they try to pass off giving and doing things like that as bribery, right?
Yeah.
Like some people would say what I just described was like
You're
bribery,
bribing your employees.
bribe my employees, but it's
Yeah.
like I'm not like
No.
I know my employees and I love my employees.
Yeah.
I don't I'm not doing it because like and I always tell my and people don't want to work for me, don't work for me.
Yeah.
There's a million places to work. Don't if you want to work with me, I would love to work with you. If you don't want to work with me, no hard feelings, man.
Yeah.
Like that's fine. I'm not doing stuff to keep you around because I want you to work with me when you don't want to work with me. I'm doing it because I appreciate you. And I think most people get that.
Yeah. And I think the another thing that sort of happens with giving and people who have trouble with giving is have trouble receiving. I think that's another underestimated sort of skill almost. Like, can you receive when someone wants to give you something or show their appreciation? Can you receive it?
Even if it's a compliment,
Yeah.
if it's not physical, even if it's just receiving the well wishes or the,
100%.
compliments from somebody else, I think is really important. So yeah, it's a good point.
Give and receive more.
Give and receive
So
more.
fun.
Keep the
Seriously.
economy going. The
Yeah.
give and receive economy.
I agree. My next card is freedom, which I think when I listen to you, like with all the kids, all the stuff you've got going on, yet you seem like a very free man. I mean, talk to me. How's it feel? Do you feel free? What is freedom for you?
I think comparatively, yes, I'm very free. I think, and I love my children more than anything on earth,
Mm.
obviously. But there are days where I wonder if I didn't have them and I could just go wherever the hell I wanted to
Oh,
go and do whatever I wanted to do and see whatever the things I wanted to see. Now, obviously, if I was doing that knowing that I wasn't with them, I would be very sad.
yeah.
Um,
But just the alternative universe
just an
version,
alternative
maybe. Yeah.
universe version wonders, what would that be like? Um, but yeah, I am very free.
Mm.
It's almost too much freedom sometimes,
How
and that
so?
can be
What makes you say that?
probably back to the self discipline where it's like, I mean, look, I feel like the business that I have, software testing, I feel like the position that we have, I feel like the team that I have, and again, it goes back to like this feeling of probably a good feeling of like needing to constantly be improving. If I'm not working hard enough
Mhm.
then I'm doing a disservice to them and to my family and to everybody else, right? Because I feel like I have something that I could sell to a lot of people. A lot of, everybody needs software testing,
Yeah.
right? A lot of companies need um scalable software testing. Just the nature of what I do is a great fit for the world. And I just literally just stumbled into it. It's not like I'm some genius. I just literally stumbled into this and it works. The testing process is very cyclical and it's great to be scalable. So like
Yeah.
if you have a bunch of stuff to do, oh my God, we need a lot of people. And then okay, things have kind of calmed back down. We can scale back down. Like that's perfect. And that doesn't exist that often in a United States based shop with all my experience and blah 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 blah.
Mm.
So I say all that because I feel like I am somewhat chained in by the fact that I know what I have. And
You know your value, your
I
worth.
know that like I need to be working a little bit harder than I am. Now that doesn't mean that I don't enjoy the freedom. Do I take days off? Do I take a couple hours here and there? Way more than anybody else that I know. I mean, most of my friends and family are 9 to 5
Mm.
and they're doing their thing. So I think, you know, just to continue with like the flip side of freedom is
Yeah.
there's a there's a maybe slightly incorrect perspective that I have ultimate free time and I
Mm.
am ultimate free guy and I can, my wife is not working, but you know, I'm constantly in and out. I'm with, like I can feel the energy in this house. And when I need to kind of like take some time off and do some things, and she's pregnant again, so there's like a whole separate dynamic. But there's just some assumptions that Jay's always free, right? Or Amanda's always free. My wife is always, she doesn't work, right? But like she has
Yeah, she
five
has.
kids. She
Yeah, I
has
was gonna
five
say,
kids.
how can you
She has
even
five kids.
say that?
She has 5 kids, and I own a business, so it's like there's an assumption that like there's some weird thing going over here where like we're just not working, and it's
But
you're
this is
kind
more
of
about
caged in,
availability, right? You're always available.
always
Yeah.
available, right? Which is free, right? Is like being free. Like, are you free? Are you like? And my wife will ask me that, and I just we get in little tits about it where she'll say, are you busy? I'm like, I'm always busy. What do you mean? Like, it's the
How's this even a
craziest.
question?
I'm like, why? It's like she calls me. Are you busy the rest of this afternoon? Yes, I'm always busy. What do you mean? Like, can I not be? Maybe, but like, are you busy? Yes, of course I'm busy. Like, what?
What
So
is the question?
yeah, it's like, well, just tell me what you want. Like, can I?
Yeah.
What can I? Yes, ma'am. What can I do for you? Right? And then so that obviously doesn't end very well. But I think I'm very free, and I think I take it for granted sometimes, and I think it's a good balance. I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate. I am free in the sense that I don't go to a 9 to 5. I am quote unquote the boss of my business, and I bought a lot of that with hard work.
Yeah.
I put my time in, and I bought a lot of it with fostering relationships with my team over the years, and I love them and I think they respect me and I think you know, I don't have to babysit. I don't have to helicopter people because let them do I've given them the opportunity to succeed or fail. And 99% of the time they succeed. And that has in turn led me to days where I don't have to be on top of things. Like my friends who in agencies are like
Yeah.
in the business, like on top of it. And like just like every project, there's like, I mean, they're freaking out because they're working 12 to 16 hours a day. And I'm
Yep.
sitting over here going, like, I got a couple meetings today. Like, what do you guys want? I mean, there's obviously days where I have like very long days, but like for the most part, I'm not in day to day. I've built a really good team and trained everybody to kind of do the right things and trusted them to do the right things.
So
And that's bought my
I
freedom back.
this was my question, right? That's been sitting sort of in my head. Like, how did you build that trust? I think that is the magic source. Like so many entrepreneurs who are listening want to know, like, how the hell do you build that kind of trust where you no longer need to be in the business so much?
It's a simple but tough thing to do. It's let the control go.
Yeah.
Find somebody you connect with that you feel like you can trust and let it go.
Mm.
I mean,
It's
do it
like
within.
stalling the plane, right?
It's like stalling the plane,
Yeah.
but it's it's a really great question. And the amount of control I've given hasn't really bitten me.
Mm,
Like here and there. I mean, things happen, but
sure.
like the benefits have just vastly outweighed the negatives. And I mean, I've gotten very lucky to find people who like to work with me and want to work with me and like to do what I do, and like they've learned from me and I've certainly learned from them. And um I think you just have to pare it down to some things that you could potentially hand off to somebody else, right? Same advice I give to anybody who's like trying to learn how to delegate or use a virtual assistant or anything else. It's like, go through your day. What are the things you don't have to be involved in? Okay, now take those things, go on Upwork, go somewhere on LinkedIn, go somewhere and find somebody that has the skills to do those things. Pay that person to do those things and let them do it, and you go do something else. Like that, in its simplest terms, like that's it. And then
Yeah.
you just kind of rinse and repeat across your different cycles. And I mean, I'm terrified that my operations lead would ever leave. Like, she's the best person in the world. Like,
Mm,
she does a lot of the day to day stuff, and I, constantly try to let her know how much I care and appreciate, and pay her well, and anything I can do to keep her happy, I'll do. And same things with all my executive team, all my assistants, like everybody is just like I love them all, and
yeah.
you know
And
that
you
would be the
obviously
biggest
trust
thing.
them again,
I
right? I
trust
think,
them
yeah,
more than anything. Like I
yeah.
don't there's no I have zero tolerance for not trusting someone.
Mm,
Zero tolerance. Like what the hell why would they be in my business? Like there's
right. If you were
nobody.
distrustful of them, basically.
No chance.
Yeah.
No chance would they be anywhere near, because I have like my stupid face is on my these client interactions. Like that's I do the sales and I get these deals with these companies. And if you're out there embarrassing me and my company, and I can't trust that you're going to deliver on the thing, like absolutely not. So I think it's a very, and I also think it's been, I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years as far as like interviewing people and
Mm,
hiring people. And I do feel like I have a very quick assessment process. I can sit down with somebody in 2 minutes and I can be like, yep, vibe check passes, and yeah, obviously we need to have a longer call than 2 minutes,
sure.
but it's very rare that that initial gut check is wrong. Just from the amount of times I've seen good, I've seen bad, I've seen ugly, and it's like I know the ones that are going to work and they feel right. I don't know
Yeah,
what that is, but there's a certain kind of vibe connection thing. Like I have that with you. I think it's a very just it's
totally.
a
Yeah.
same background, kind
Yep.
of just like same mindset, like um and every now and again, it'll I would say 2 to 3 people out of the last 10 years, out of hundreds of people have I interviewed and dozens have I hired, have my read just been completely off.
Mm,
So, I feel like I've honed it
that's,
pretty well.
yeah.
And that just, there's like, I trust myself, that's really what it is. Like, trust yourself that you can train somebody and hand something, but somebody else. And if you don't trust yourself to do that, then you're never going to be able to do it. So I think
Yeah.
it is, a big of it is trusting yourself because, you're the one at the end of the day is responsible. I never blame my people for anything. I don't care what it is. Like I don't. It doesn't matter what the screw up is. It all goes back to the fact that I was the one that was doing this 7 years ago. Like if I was still doing it, then it would have been done my way. I have somebody else doing that because I put them in that position to do that, and either I didn't train them or I didn't understand that they were the wrong person for the job. So it is not anybody else's fault on my team when something isn't done right. And I will be the last person to like blame anybody. So I think you have to just be kind of comfortable to know that like you're where the buck stops and
Yeah.
ends, and the trust is really just with yourself. Can you manage properly, or put people in place to manage properly? Because eventually you
Yeah.
start building those layers up to where like people are managing people, and it all goes back to like you sitting down doing the work. Like are you this did you instill the same lessons and kind of the same drive that you had to get stuff done right? And if you did, then you could probably build a pretty good organization.
I love this. It starts with you, basically, right? So everybody out there who's thinking, oh, I want to build a team. Okay, do you trust yourself? And if not, how can you start building that trust?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
now for something completely different. Play.
Play.
Played.
Uh,
So you're still playing video games from time to time? What else?
yes, yes. Um, flying,
Yeah,
flying
that's
is
playing as well, I guess.
man. I haven't flown in so long. I've yes. I could also probably show you. I don't know if I could show you. It's probably over there, but I have a full flight sim rig, like
Like a
the
cockpit kind of.
not a cockpit, but like can I show? I don't know, it's not gonna reach, but it has the yoke and the all the pedals and all the everything.
Uh-huh.
So I do flight sim, which is super fun. It's kind of a video game, but it's also kind of training for flying. Um, yeah, I love to play video games. Um, I love to play outside with my kids. I love to go to the park. Like I love being in nature. Like I said, probably because I grew up in the middle of nowhere. But
Mm.
in Pennsylvania, we do have lots of great parks. My littlest one is now 1, so she's getting old enough to like kind of go out on her little adventures. Like I'm a big adventure kind of guy. Like even though I wish I lived in the mountains, but I don't. But it's close. Like I'm a big water guy, so
Uh-huh.
we're constantly out like the lake or the creeks or like whatever, just like building stuff by the creek or throwing rocks or like fishing or like doing whatever. So I love to get out and be outside and just it's hot as hell right now over here. I don't know about you guys, but it's gonna
Oh,
be
it's finally cooled down over here. I'm very happy.
yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah. 24 degrees.
okay? So that's like what in
Perfect.
the probably 80s or something, maybe 70s,
I don't
80s
know.
Fahrenheit. Yeah. I need like
It's
I need like a cheat sheet because I have this
yeah,
conversation with
same.
someone.
But when it comes
Um,
to play, would you also like tinkering and building things? Does that also come into play? Like,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah,
because it
absolutely.
sounds like you're doing a lot of that too with the telescopes and sort of,
I mean, that's 100% like in the play category. Like I'm certainly not working.
yeah,
Especially if you ask my wife. Uh, no, that's 100% in the play category. Even like managing that community is in the
yeah.
play category. Like doing the stuff I have to do for that. Uh, and tinkering with, like I said, like the Arduino stuff. I don't know. I doing hockey obviously is play. I mean, it doesn't really get
So
much
a lot of your
pure than that.
life is play.
Yeah, yeah. I
Why the
also
sad voice?
because I also like really enjoy like it's such a cliche thing, like if you enjoy what you're doing you'll never work a day in your life, but
Mm.
it's I really enjoy running a business. Like
Yeah,
does
same.
it
It's
does
so
not
fun.
feel like work to me. Like
Yeah,
I love like sitting down to solve a problem for my business. Now yes, there's days that are awful and there's days that
mm,
are hard and there's days that are tough and everything's not fun. You're sitting on calls, like a bunch of boring stuff that has it, but like making a new marketing initiative where like I
yeah,
have to figure out how do I market my product to like a new target. Like that's like a very fun thing for me. How do I get on this sales call and really dial it in and like understand their problems and like pitch stuff back to them as I hear it. Like that's fun to me. Like there's a
yeah.
lot of it that's fun to me. Doing the podcast stuff, that's very fun to me. So like I
That
there's a
was my
little bit of
next card.
hesitation.
So thank you.
Well, it's hesitation in my voice because like I do feel like you could categorize it all as play. Like there's no
Yeah.
real I don't dread doing many things.
But isn't that like, when you define success, if you can live that way, isn't that the
That's kind of
best?
the point. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of the point.
When
You kind of
everything
don't
feels
want to
like,
tell it's kind of like me not telling my wife that I enjoy vacuuming. Because like I feel like if I tell her that, then like I lose credit for that. It's like I won't
yeah,
get the points for
that's no
doing
longer a
that.
chore, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
she's
yeah,
like, oh, she just likes doing it. I'm like, I don't
yeah,
like, whatever. But it's kind of the same thing with all that. It's like if you tell people that there's no grind
yeah,
and I mean there is a grind. Don't get me wrong. There is. And There's work to be
yeah.
done. But if you enjoy it, you almost don't want to tell anybody. You don't want to sound like you're having too much fun.
We
Right?
need to bust this myth, right? That
But I think it's because people are miserable.
yeah,
I think it's because a lot of people are just miserable and they're
yeah,
working for a 9 to 5 job and they don't like what they do, so they don't want to hear some asshole like me just
yeah. Go
having
on,
having a good time
yeah.
shooting space and doing all the playing and just like So it's you got to try to be what's the word not humble but I
Well,
don't want.
it's right, like toning down your joy, which is kind of sad.
I'm not saying maybe tone it down in public. Like I
Like
have
I
a great time. Like don't get me wrong.
good,
I have a good time. So and I hope everybody else does too. That's the
right?
thing. It's
And
like
you
I
can
want.
also be like an inspiration to people like, oh my God, this is possible. It's possible to have this much fun, right? And not get arrested.
Yes, and not doing doing drugs or drinking. I mean,
Yeah,
I gave up all those things years ago. So it's and that was a big shift. Like
I
not
bet.
thinking that I had a couple beers was a big. And that was a few years ago. My wife quit drinking before I did, and I thought she was crazy. And then I quit, and I was like, oh, you don't have to be hungover in the morning. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So that's been fun to re. And I'm not like a big like sober evangelist kind of guy, but I enjoy it. I it's an interesting challenge to like not have that crutch where like I'm just gonna sit kick back and have a beer at the end of the day. It's like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna and I'm again as you like we've talked about like I'm very much a dive in head first kind of guy. So it was never just one beer was never one beer. So I'm better off.
And I have to say, like, I think it's so much easier to either do it or not do it instead of like, oh, I'm gonna like do a little bit less. That is so much harder.
I feel like it's
Actually,
impossible.
it's
Like if you
super hard.
enjoy drinking and you're like in that thing, like
Yeah.
there's no, and it's crazy to me when I go to these business things and I see people just like hammered, and I'm like, you're at a, we're like a business lunch, and you're like
Yeah.
trashed, like that's
I love that
wild.
this is changing though. Like,
I
you
do
know,
too, yeah. And I used to be, look, I mean, I'm only 37, but like I put my fair share of beers away, in my day, so I feel like I'm okay to talk about it, but um, yeah, it's definitely changing, and like the wave is like a lot of celebrities are kind of like helping like just make it a little more publicly aware that you don't have to just be hammered all the time
yeah.
or
And also a lot of
all
people
the
like
time.
and people I coach, for example, are speaking up in companies saying, listen, the Friday night drinks, can we just do that without the alcohol? Like, do we have to get pissed all the time? What the
Right.
hell?
Yeah. It is still like you still kind of feel like the little nagging uh whatever if you're like asking that, and I think it hasn't quite shifted.
No, but I think like
um
the new generation, people in their late 20s, like early 30s, feel much more comfortable sort of speaking
I
up
hope
about
so.
this, right? And
I
saying,
hope so.
what is this crap?
I hope
Yeah.
so.
Which
It's
is a
been
great segue into the next card, which is boundaries.
boundaries. Wow, I gotta get a
Boundaries.
copy of these cards for my podcast.
And
Making it
let's first talk about kids and boundaries.
That's your. But by the way, maybe that's your next business is podcast cards. You can
Podcast
make us.
cards. Oh
You
my
can
God.
make
I've
us.
always wanted to make a card deck.
Me too.
Fuck.
Maybe this is our
Okay.
biz. All right, we'll do it together. We'll do a podcast. You shuffle it. Oh, this is great. You have different categories.
People,
Oh, we
business
just.
ideas being born live
Oh
on
man,
the air.
that's a great idea. By the way, that is a great. People buy that. People buy
Let's
it.
do it.
Boundaries with kids. They don't exist.
Mm. So tell me,
Next
like,
card.
that sounds impossible.
No, I mean it's having a partner in my wife that you know does get the boundaries that the
Ah,
kids have
you've
to have.
delegated the boundary setting.
I mean, not I didn't delegate the boundaries setting, but you know, she helps enforce the boundaries. Like dad's in there doing something like this morning. Like she took the kids out to go to the farm where they're gonna pet goats and stuff. Like that's amazing. So like she has helped reinforce those boundaries, and um yeah, I mean, it's tough, and it's I think personal boundaries like that's even tougher.
Yeah.
Like my God, man, I have a sweet tooth. I love candy, and I
Uh huh.
love ice cream, and I love all sorts of sweet stuff. And I mean, even last night I was we have this place near us called Produce Junction, and you can go buy it feels like you rob the place when you come out with the amount of fruit and vegetables you get there for the amount of money you spend there. It's like I don't know where they steal these from, but you get so much. So I came
Falling
home
off
with
the back
just
of a truck. Yeah.
oh my God, I came home with just like everything, mangoes and pineapples and whatever. So last night I did set my boundary of I'm not going to have sweets after dinner. I'm going to have some fruit instead, which I did. So I think those personal boundaries are just as like important and hard to
Mm.
deal with, because they're inside your head. Like my kids, I can like shut a door and be like, go outside. The ones inside my head, it's just like, you know, do I want to get up at 5 a.m. every morning? Not all the time. but like I've set that boundary for myself for like I'm going to do that. It's a structure like we talked about earlier.
Yeah, I call them rules, right? They're my rules.
Yeah.
And and I think that is the flip side of freedom. I think for all entrepreneurs, like we're very free, but with that freedom comes great responsibility, right? Nobody's checking up on us. Like, oh, what time are you coming in? What
Yeah.
are you doing today? Et cetera, et cetera. We have to do it and to
Yeah.
be accountable to ourselves. And, not everybody likes that.
Yeah. I think having it's and also it's tough to like outsource that.
Yeah, you
Like
can't really. Then, I mean, you just like have to get a job again.
that's what I'm saying. And like people are like, well, just get like a person that is like an advisor that you can. But like in reality, you have to figure it out. You have to figure out accountability, and you have to put in the time when you need to put it in. I mean, there's been times where in the past few months where it's like, we got this big client, they work these crazy hours. I got to be in on the weekend. Like I'll do whatever I got to do. Like, but then that also opens up taking off on a Monday or like doing what
Yes,
I mean, taking up whatever. You just got to set those rules, like you said, to be successful, but not go overboard.
exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I am crazy disciplined in some ways. Like I'm in my office, unless I've worked evenings, I'm in my office 9 a.m., right? Nobody checks up on me. I'm just here. Like I just go. It's not even a question of not going. But then whilst you're in the office, you can still get distracted, right?
Yes.
Yeah. There's so many things you could be doing. So much fun you could be having also. I mean, seriously.
You could just play with Legos.
Like I need to build Lego every day. That is just
That should be a goal for you. You should
it's,
make a
no,
creation every
it's a
day.
rule. It's non-conditional, right? Like so, I'm right now I'm working on the smithy. It's a beautiful set. Like, and I just build it in parts, and I get to savor and enjoy it even more.
Oh,
So
that's beautiful. I
so
like
fun.
that. All right.
But listen, what about the future? Do you do any like future visioning? Do you have like ideas of where you want to take the company, where you want to be in 10 years, or are you like, no, I'm super happy where I'm at, and let's just have fun and enjoy the ride?
I've tried, man. I've really tried. I've really tried. I mean, the business is easier,
Yeah.
right? You can do, forecasting or
Yeah, you
say,
can
hey,
at least do some projections, right?
say next year we want to do however many million a year. Yes, you can do that. I've tried. I've tried doing the goals thing, write down your 1, 5, 10, and those are great, but it just always feels so arbitrary. I don't know. I really have a tough time doing that. Like I want to own a plane, I want to own a Cessna one day. Great. Like, well, what the hell does that mean in like this like I'm not gonna work backwards from I mean, I just the type of person I am. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
like back myself down from that. Maybe I should. I don't know. You know, I want to get into doing some real estate stuff, like investment in real estate, and like I've always wanted to like own a rental place somewhere and like rent that out. Like always something I always thought would be a good idea. Like that sort of stuff I think is in my future. I just
Mm,
don't know where in my future
yeah.
that's gonna be. I don't know. What about you? Do you have a bunch of forecasting and stuff?
It never works for me either.
I'm glad
Like
to hear that. I thought everybody could just do
no,
it and
no.
I was
I still have to
broken.
meet like the first person with a fast brain and like lots of interests who actually operates that way. So I think the way we operate is we are amazing at like pivoting and taking advantage of stuff that comes along, right? And think, oh, this is, you maybe next week you walk around and you'll see the perfect property to buy to rent out, or
Right.
maybe like in 3 years' time, and it doesn't matter to you whether it's next week or in 3 years' time. You're not
Yeah.
in a rush, right? You're just waiting for the perfect
But
opportunity.
see, it will be kicking around in my head though. That's the only
Yeah.
thing. It's like I am like but and that's I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Is like I do have these things that I want to do, but like you said, I'm just kind of
Yes.
navigating through and like in the back of my head, it's always going, hey man, I'm still here. Like I still want to do this. Like getting my pilot's license. Like that drives me crazy. I want to do it. I don't have a date on my calendar where I'm gonna get it
Yes.
done. Like, should we do that? Or do we just keep
For
floating
me,
through
it's more a
life?
list of things I want to experience, learn, also some achievements. But whenever I write down, like, oh, I want to make this much money with my company, I just lose interest straight away. I just
Yeah.
check out. I'm just like, yeah, and then what? Like, what does that even mean? Maybe I want to build a bigger community that I can get on board with, right?
Right. Yeah.
Those kind of goals. I want to live in Japan for a while and become fluent in Japanese. Totally.
Right.
And like working with Lego, that's my thing. That's always in the back of my head. So I'm smart enough to have that in there, and my brain will just do its own magic and plot and use whatever comes my way to further that goal. I don't need to like have an Excel sheet with
But does
steps.
anybody actually have that Excel sheet that
I'm
works? Like
sure.
I know that like people say that, and it's like it's like the infomercial kind of like if you can, like
Yeah.
it's the self help guys, it's but like
Yes.
does anybody actually do that and it works? Like I've never
I'm
met
sure they do.
anybody
I'm
that
not sure it works. I still have to meet the first person who can
I
prove
haven't
that it
met
works.
anybody that
But
like
you
sets
can't
those
predict
goals.
life. That's why it's so
That's
fun.
well, that's also why I think that stuff makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know in 10
Like,
years, like, what the hell you're even going to want to be doing? Like, it's
exactly.
crazy.
And
That's
I
all
think
right.
that, okay, I love that you're saying that, because I think almost all people listening will be thinking the exact same thing. Like, I feel like I'm a completely different person from who I was like a month ago, right? Let alone like in 10 years time, it's just unimaginable what
I'm
I'll be
so
interested
glad
in.
that you saying this.
Oh,
This is changing my life. I'm glad that I'm on this podcast today
it's
because
so good.
I swear I felt like I was on the island of misfit toys and I just was the guy who could not
No, no, no,
set
no,
a
no. There's so
goal
many of us.
set a goal and like because I you hear it all the time. What are your 5 year goals? I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to own a plane someday. I want to live by the beach someday, kind of like yours, where it's just like I want these things
I think,
eventually at some
yeah,
point.
I think wanting things is important, right? Because they propel us. They pull us forward towards things. If we don't have desires, we just like, kind of stay
Yeah,
put. We don't challenge ourselves. So we do need things that force us to grow and to evolve. But that doesn't need to be a worked out plan to, I don't know, make 10 million, or and just the thought for me like of making a lot of money and then having to do nothing is the most horrifying thing, right?
I think that's yeah, that has been the big realization of mine over the past few years too. It's like that would be awful.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be great for a reason like I hope I do get there, but it's not for the reasons why I thought. It's to do things for other people. It's to put people in better situations. It's not just to have that money in the bank and then like who can I don't know. I guess some people could just do nothing. I don't know. I don't know who could do that, but I could
That's,
not do
yeah,
nothing. I would
different.
go
Yeah.
bananas trying to like not do something.
Yeah. Cannot relate,
Yeah,
basically.
no, I can't. I have a hard enough time sitting on the beach. I mean, I love it, but give me like 10 minutes and I'm gonna be wandering around looking for seashells or something. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Building a dam. Like,
Yeah, building a
yes.
giant. Yeah, like one of those where the water comes up and it'll go through the whole uh
Yep.
castle into the moat. Yeah, I'll be down with the kids
That's,
doing that. Yes, that's me.
yeah. Yeah. And I guess it's good that there's lots of different types of people in the world, right? Maybe that's a good note to end on, but that
Yes.
I totally normalizing the fact that you do not need to have specific goals and like worked out plans to get towards them.
And if you
Is,
don't, please let me know that. Like
yeah.
email me and let me know that I'm not
Confirm.
crazy. That I'm not that me and Elsie are not just uh crazy people.
We can
I'd love
start the community of like the non-goal people who are
yes,
still
no
insanely
goals.
successful. Because that's
Yeah,
the other thing, right? You can be so successful without having the goals and have so much fun.
yes. What do they call that? Moving the goalposts when you don't have it like your goal constantly changes. That should be the name of our podcast.
I love it.
Moving goalposts. Goal
I love it.
some we'll need a better name than that. But anyway,
All right. One final question I love to ask all my guests, and you don't need to answer it straight away. You can just let me know later. But is there someone in the world who you think deserves a much bigger audience because they're doing amazing things in whatever field, right? But they're, those people who just do their work, don't want any attention, don't want to do any marketing, whatever it is. I would love to spotlight them.
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not.
totally
I don't.
cool.
Yeah, I don't. I know a lot of good people that would be up for that. Um. Yeah, I know a lot of good people. Yeah. Let me.
Yeah, think about it and then mail it to me.
We'll talk about it on our podcast.
Yes,
Moving
totally.
goalposts. We'll bring that up.
So good. Oh my God. This has been so much fun. Thank you
This
so
is
much.
so much fun. I've never had this much. I do a lot of these, and this was by far the most fun one ever. So thank you for having me on and letting me ramble. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.